Are you an anti-Semite?
I am a Semite. What we have been watching Abu Dhabi doing in many Arab countries, they were really, as I call them, the Trojan horse of the Israeli ambitions.
How far will this split go between Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi?
It's this feeling of jealousy. This was definitely one of the main reasons behind bin Zayed's attempts to destroy Saudi Arabia. After the genocide in Gaza, the whole world, not only Saudi Arabia, the whole world saw how vicious, how inhumane, and how catastrophic the Israeli government is. The extremists who are ruling Israel now are not worthy of any cooperation, and they could never be trusted. Israel, briefly, is a threat to humanity, it's a threat to Judaism, it's a threat to Jews, and definitely it is a threat to the region and to the Arab world. It's really ironic that those whose hands are stained with blood, the blood of Palestinians in Gaza, are the ones who are invited now to govern Gaza and to find a solution for the Palestinians.
Relations with Hamas have been cut for some time. Will the freeze on the relations with Hamas continue, or do you think Riyadh will recalibrate its relations with that group?
Hamas did not come from a planet, another planet. Hamas are Palestinians.
How real is a prospect of the formation of a regional alliance that could limit Israel's ambitions?
If Israel could commit this enormous genocide in Gaza, what would prevent it from repeating it in any other part of the Arab world? Nothing.
Saudi Arabia phoned up Trump to say, give peace a chance, don't attack Iran, because Iran is not like Venezuela.
It was a huge gamble, totally unrealistic, totally reckless. And I think that's why Saudi Arabia threw all its weight to prevent it as much as possible.
My name is David Hearst, and it's my great pleasure to be talking to the renowned Saudi academic, writer and thinker, Dr. Ahmed Altuwaijri. Dr. Ahmed triggered a global scandal by accusing the United Arab Emirates of throwing itself into the arms of Zionism and functioning as Israel's Trojan horse. Dr. Ahmed has twice been a member of the Shura Council, a consultative body which advises the king in Saudi Arabia on laws, policy and governance. His article was published in a mainstream newspaper in Saudi Arabia, close to the court, Al Jazeera. Never has such language been used before against what was before a close ally. Dr. Ahmed, did you ask permission to write this article, or were you told what to write in any way?
First, thank you for having me. I'm glad you have asked this very interesting question. There has been a lot of speculation about this issue. Many people in the region and outside thought that this was under direction from the Saudi government. This is totally untrue. I do not hold any official position in the Saudi government now. I am not a spokesperson for the government or any of its agencies. The article was my own initiative. I didn't even consult anybody, even from my friends or family, or it was, in my point of view, a responsibility in a very critical time when our region is passing through a very difficult stage. Watching what is going on, the enormous conspiracies that are taking place, and the deviation or the extent of the deviation that the Abu Dhabi Emirates has taken in recent years, and especially in recent weeks. I felt it was my responsibility as an observer, as an intellectual, to write my opinion and explain what I thought and what I still think is not clear to many people in the region. So in short, the article is absolutely my idea. It was not even suggested to me by a friend, or let alone the Saudi government. And by the way, the Saudi government, like any other government, has its own channels and its own spokespersons. The kingdom does not need me to be a spokesperson. I think it has more than enough of agencies and departments and spokespersons. So in brief, absolutely not.
The reaction of Abu Dhabi was to activate its pro-Israel network in Washington, and immediately you found yourself accused of being anti-Semitic. Are you an anti-Semite?
Yes, I have been following this very closely. As I said in my second article, it is really ridiculous to accuse me or to accuse Saudi Arabia of anti-Semitism. I am a Semite. Saudi Arabia is historically the cradle of Semitic tribes and people, and at my own level, I mean personally, I have always been an advocate of coexistence, of respecting cultures, and definitely respecting religions. I have many Jewish friends. I had many Jewish friends. So it's absolutely ridiculous to accuse a person like me of being anti-Semitic. Saudi Arabia, on the other hand, as I said, it's historically a Semitic society, and the kingdom has always advocated tolerance and coexistence and respect of religions and cultures. And as I mentioned also in the article, Saudi Arabia is the only country in the region that presented two peace initiatives for the Arab world, not only for Saudi Arabia, and convinced the Arab world to adopt especially the first and the second initiative. The first one was presented by late King Fahd, may God bless his soul, and the second was presented by King Abdullah, may God bless his soul. The context of both initiatives reflects respect of Judaism, reflect respect for the reality that we have, that there are many Jews living in Palestine. And despite my conviction, and I'm sure many people's conviction, that the Zionists who occupied Palestine do not have the right to do that, but even despite that, Saudi Arabia was realistic and was tolerant, and also was seeking genuinely and truthfully peace in the region, and went a long way to convince all the Arab countries to adopt these initiatives. In addition, Saudi Arabia has established an international body in Saudi Arabia called King Abdullah Center for Understanding and Coexistence. And the center has Jewish scholars and Jewish rabbis as members in the board of trustees, and the center has invited many religious rabbis, professors, academicians, and more than that, Saudi Arabia has been accepting Jewish people to come to Saudi Arabia as tourists, as researchers. In the past, or most of the time, probably all the time, they came with other passports, but it was known they were Jewish and they were welcomed, and none of them was ever harassed or made felt unwelcome in any way. So it's absolutely ridiculous and insane both to accuse Saudi Arabia or to accuse me of anti-Semitism.
You were in fact a good friend of Yehudi Menuhin. Can you describe how you met?
Yes. It's a beautiful story. I will not go into all the details, but more than probably 30 years ago, next to me sat a gentleman, an older gentleman. He was very cordial, greeted me, and initiated the conversations. And I understood from him that he was a teacher of music and that he was going to Switzerland to attend a ceremony in which his students were graduating, were supposed to be graduated. And he invited me to attend this event. When we arrived in Geneva, I discovered by pure coincidence, I didn't know him at the time, I just knew he was a teacher of music. After the ceremony, he was kind enough to invite me to his house in Gstaad in Switzerland. And we spent 5 hours, actually we stayed until 3 o'clock in the morning, talking about religions, about philosophies, about the world state, about Zionism, and mainly about his father, the great Moshe Menuhin, who was the author of a great book named or called The Decadence of Judaism in Our Time. I mentioned it, by the way, in the article. And since then, we became very close friends. So it's very nice of you to bring this topic up, and I'm glad to talk about it.
And then what happened was that the Anti-Defamation League, which is the New York-based advocacy organization whose stated purpose is to fight anti-Semitism, condemned you for anti-Semitism, and then boasted that shortly after they put the post up, the article that you'd originally wrote was deleted. This was instantly contradicted by a poster called Columbus, who's widely assumed to be the voice of Saud al-Qahtani, who is the Crown Prince's media czar, and he posted that the Emiratis were circulating a lie, that the article had been deleted, and it wasn't true, and the article was still there. And it was reposted. So the only conclusion observers like me can draw is that what you said met with official approval in Riyadh. Is that true?
You know, honestly, when I wrote the article and when I sent it for publication in Al Jazeera newspaper, first I did not expect it to have all this huge reaction. And secondly, I was not honestly sure whether it was going to be tolerated by the Saudi authority. But when Al Jazeera published it, I felt more comfortable, and I thought at least they don't reject it. But you know, I would emphasize this absolutely. They have nothing to do with this article, not even remotely. And as I said, it was an article inspired by my feeling of responsibility in a situation where the region is facing enormous dangers, and it's a critical historical moment. and something has to be done. So that was my small contribution to spread awareness about this dilemma. And I think Saud was absolutely right in what he said.
Can we talk about the substance of what you said and why there is this rift between the kingdom and the Emirates? It's not just the Emirates. You're talking specifically about Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of the Emirates, and the power that Abu Dhabi has. You're not talking about the rest of the Emirates, whom you do not compare. But just to start from the question of why now, you have a situation where, at least for the past decade, Saudi Arabia and the Emirates have acted like brother in arms to suppress the Arab Spring. And they've done this in Yemen, in Egypt, in Libya, in Tunisia. Why is the split happening now?
Well, you know, the problem is really complicated and sophisticated in many, many ways. To look at it as just a reaction to an event in South Yemen is not objective and is not enlightened. I mentioned in the article that Saudi Arabia had always had doubts about a lot of the actions that the Dubai rulers took in Yemen and also in the region. I may talk about that later, but they were patient and they were hoping that wisdom would prevail and the Dubai rulers would realize that what they were doing is not only dangerous to Yemen, but it's also dangerous to the whole region and to the Arab world. The fronts are numerous. It's not only that the Dubai rulers, wanted to control South Yemen and to cessate it from the Grand Yemen. It was part, or it was thought, it was looked at as part of a much more dangerous, I would call it even conspiracy. It was in contradiction with what Saudi Arabia wanted to happen in Yemen, which is the unity of Yemen, the progress of Yemen, the peace in Yemen. Abu Dhabi's attempts in collaboration with some of the southern Yemenis were destroying all of these objectives. They were against the unity, they were against prosperity, they were against peace, and more dangerously, they were serving the enemies of the Arab world, and particularly the Zionist entity in Palestine. So the reasons were numerous. It was not one single issue. And this is what I think, the people in the region and the world should understand. It's not an emotional reaction that took place at a moment of anger. It was not based on superficial justifications. It was a reaction based on solid reasons that proved to the kingdom that what Abu Dhabi was doing in Yemen was dangerous, was detrimental to the region, detrimental to Yemen itself. And that's why they took the quick action. And I'm so glad they did, because had they not taken this step, Yemen would have been destroyed. The whole region would have been destabilized. And one of the great ambitions of Israel would have been achieved.
The stated ambition of Israel is to fragment the Arab world so that they become the great military hegemon and they basically can bomb whoever they want. They want to split Syria up, they also want to split Iran up, and have a policy of fragmentation. The undeclared policy of the United Arab Emirates is to foster division and civil war, and we've seen that by their funding of the RSF in Sudan. They're doing similar things in Somaliland. They're doing similar things in Algeria, where they are supporting the Berbers. And they've done the same all across the Arab world. And the Emirates and the Israelis are now very, very close allies together. How does Saudi Arabia see that alliance? What are the dangers to Saudi Arabia of that specific alliance?
You know, as I said in the beginning, I don't represent, officially Saudi Arabia. I'm not a spokesperson.
What do you think about that?
But I can tell you what I think, and it's on my own observation and my own opinion. Let me go back a little bit. I think this has to be put in the right context. In 1982, a famous journalist, Israeli journalist, his name is Oded Yinon, he was famous. He was actually at the time, or he was at certain times, an advisor to Sharon. He held a high position in the foreign ministry in Israel. He wrote an article, a detailed article, in the Israeli magazine Kovene. The summary of this article is that by the way, the title of the article was a strategy for Israel in the 1980s. The summary of this was, in his opinion, the Arab world is ready ethnically, religiously, and regionally to be defragmented. And his recommendation was that Israel should seize the moment and try to achieve this goal, and especially with regard to the big countries in the Arab world, namely Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Iraq, Syria, Algeria, all the big countries. The great historian, Israeli historian, Avi Schleim, commented, a few months or a few weeks after the publishing of this article, and he said, "This is the project of the extreme right in Israel. It's not Oded Yinon, independent thinking." And later in 1997, this article was adopted by the International Zionist Organization. What we have been seeing in the Arab world, and to be more accurate, what we have been watching Abu Dhabi doing in many Arab countries, and certainly in Yemen, is an implementation of this strategy. They were really, as I call them, the Trojan horse of the Israeli ambitions. And if you allow me, it may take a few minutes, but I will explain this in details. They started in Libya, just after the toppling down of Gaddafi. Libya at the time needed unity, needed reconstruction, needed peace. And the Abu Dhabi entity went there to destroy all these ambitions. They supported Haftar, who was a separatist, who had no legal or even moral justification to do what he did, but they threw their weight behind him, supported him financially, militarily, and they even sent their jets to bomb the legitimate government that was recognized by the UN and by the entire world. And then they moved to all the other countries. They went to Sudan, they went to Yemen, they went to Somalia, they went even to Algeria. And I remember watching the former President Marzouki in one of his interviews.
In Tunisia, yeah.
Yes, he said when he was president, Abu Dhabi was supporting the opposition. And I would say, it's okay. They support the opposition, but they were sending armored cars to the opposition. And President Marzouki was saying, how could this happen? I mean, how could a member of the Arab League send to another member of the Arab League armored cars to the opposition without the knowledge of the government? It's just insane. It's really insane. What they did in Yemen, they encouraged the southern or some of the southern entities to demand separation. They armed them, they trained them, and not only this, and this is really one of the ugliest things they did. They brought mercenaries from the United States and from France to assassinate all the important leaders in South Yemen who could have created an obstacle in the path of Abu Dhabi achieving not Abu Dhabi's goal, but achieving Israel's goal in Yemen. And I have been following this as a human rights lawyer. Many human rights organizations documented that the people assassinated were not terrorists as Abu Dhabi claimed. They were not even armed people. They were intellectuals, imams, prominent social leaders, and they had nothing to do with violence. They had nothing to do with, but they were against the Abu Dhabi Israeli plans and activities in southern Yemen, and of course they were against the separation of southern Yemen. In Somalia, Somalia is an Arab, a member of the Arab League. They did everything that could be imagined to separate the north of Somalia, militarily, intelligence-wise, financially, and now Israel recognized Somalia as the only
Somaliland.
Somaliland as the only country recognizing this entity, and Abu Dhabi and Israel are working hard to build military bases there and seaports, and so Abu Dhabi, in brief, instead of being a sincere ally and brother of Saudi Arabia and of the Arab world, they turned to be the Trojan horse of Israel. And without this in mind, the problem between Saudi Arabia and Dubai, Abu Dhabi could never be understood. And without this, the volume of the danger that is facing the whole Arab world would not be viewed properly.
But politics is also about personal relationships in the Gulf, and I remember the role that the now president of the Emirates, Mohammed bin Zayed, played in unveiling the new prince to not only Israel itself in secret meetings with Benjamin Netanyahu, but also to Washington and specifically to the Trump family. And MBZ used his networks of lobbying to help MBS become known. How has the relationship between MBZ and MBS developed since then?
I doubt, honestly, that Mohammed bin Zayed had any role in promoting Prince Mohammed bin Salman. I know there were rumors about this, and maybe some people wrote about this, but as far as I'm concerned, I think it's total nonsense unless it's documented, and I haven't seen any documentation for this. And on the other hand, a person like Mohammed bin Salman, being the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, does not need any bin Zayed or any other entity, in this area. Saudi Arabia is well known to America. I think it is the biggest and the best ally of America all along history, despite America's unfortunate and unreasonable policies in the region. But definitely there was no need for any intermediaries between Saudi Arabia and America. But to answer your question in another way, it's true. Mohammed bin Salman trusted Mohammed bin Zayed, and in good faith did his best to cooperate with all the Gulf countries, but especially with the United Arab Emirates, for the sake of the region, for the sake of the Arab world, and the Emirates was the first to be invited to the coalition in Yemen, and they were given a big role there. Unfortunately, they manipulated the situation. They misused the trust, and they did what we have seen, all the past 7-8 years or more in Yemen. So yes, it's true. The kingdom in general, but Prince Mohammed bin Salman trusted Mohammed bin Zayed, but unfortunately he proved to be totally untrustworthy.
Saudi Arabia is not the only GCC country to be worried by what the Emiratis were doing in Yemen. Oman as well was worried. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Well, in the recent months, as an observer again, Oman has, like Saudi Arabia, has realized the danger of what Abu Dhabi was doing in Yemen. And I have no doubt that they are cooperating fully now with Saudi Arabia to prevent the dangers and the threats that are coming from this ill-advised, insane intervention by Abu Dhabi in Yemen, and again, by the blind paving of the road for the Israeli ambitions in the area.
How far will this split go between Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi? Because already the UAE have pulled out of defense contracts, and also we hear that Riyadh is advising companies whose headquarters are in the Emirates to come back to Saudi Arabia. How far will this go?
This is, by the way, another reason for the separation between Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. Mohammed bin Zayed never accepted that the economic volume and concentration would move quickly from the Emirates to Saudi Arabia. Prince Mohammed bin Salman, had this huge vision that was named 2030, and it started before the action was taking place in Yemen. It was from the moment he was the deputy of the king, and this vision, there is no comparison between Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates at the economic scale. Saudi Arabia is the biggest market in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is amongst the 20 biggest economies in the world. Saudi Arabia has almost 35 or 36 universities, has many huge research centers, with all respect to Abu Dhabi, Abu Dhabi is a small district of Riyadh. I mean, there's no comparison. You can't compare. Even in military power, in international influence. Probably, and I said this, by the way, in my first article, it's this feeling of jealousy that Saudi Arabia has started to shift the attention and the economic interest from the Emirates to Saudi Arabia. I think this was definitely one of the main reasons behind bin Zayed's attempts to, let me say it very frankly, to destroy Saudi Arabia. I think he has been working very hard to encourage the fragmenting of Saudi Arabia.
So in summary, this is not an emotional response. This is a strategic shift of major importance.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Some people may look at it that way, but it's naive to look at it this way. It's deep. It's multifaceted. It's much more strategic. And without looking at it that way, we are doing reality a big injustice.
Can we talk about Saudi Arabia's relationship with Israel? We've talked about this before, but let's go into a little bit more depth. Before the Hamas attack in October 2023, there were daily reports, almost, or weekly reports, of the fact that Saudi Arabia, or the prospect that Saudi Arabia was just about to sign the Abraham Accords and normalize relationships with Israel without a Palestinian state and without any prospect of a solution to that terrible crisis. And even during the genocide in Gaza, there were no permitted demonstrations, pro-Palestinian demonstrations in Palestine, in Riyadh and in Saudi Arabia, and you weren't even allowed to tweet about what was happening there. And yet now the rhetoric is really high, and there's a real element of sort of hostility, at least in social media, towards what Israel is doing. How can you explain that sudden change?
Well, you know, it's true that before October 7, Saudi Arabia was doing its best to find a solution for the Palestinian dilemma. It's not true that they were desperate to sign the Abraham Accords, nor to have, a very close relationship with Israel. Absolutely not. Saudi Arabia was deeply committed to solving the Palestinian dilemma. And at all levels, Saudi Arabia was doing its best to help the world find this solution. And the solution in the Saudi point of view is very simple and very clear. It was embedded in the two initiatives. And it is that peace in the Middle East will not happen until the Palestinian rights are completely recognized, until an independent and a sovereign Palestinian state takes place, and until a just solution for the Palestinian refugees takes place. This was very clear, and it was, from the time of King Abdulaziz, may God bless his soul, until the present time, this Saudi position has never changed, has never shifted, neither more nor less. So the kingdom's attempts to achieve this were misinterpreted as attempts to just join the Abrahamic. It's not that, and take it from me, I know this very well. After the genocide in Gaza, which is, by the way, a huge disgrace that will never be forgotten, not only for those who were directly involved in it, but for humanity in general. This genocide should never have taken place when it was transmitted live to all the world. It's certainly going to be one of the worst disgraces humanity will remember.
Can I interrupt you there? What was the effect on Saudi public opinion of those images? Was there a sense of shame that the Saudis were doing nothing while the nightly Gazans were being slaughtered like cattle? What were the feelings like in Saudi Arabia about, and of course it continues today, it hasn't finished, but can you tell me about how public opinion in Saudi Arabia changed?
Thank you, David. This is a very important question, but if you allow me, I will complete my answer because this is worth detailing. After the genocide in Gaza, the whole world, not only Saudi Arabia, the whole world saw how vicious, how inhumane, and how catastrophic the Israeli government is. How Israel is really a catastrophe, not only for the region, for humanity in general. The size of evil and the genocide that took place convinced Saudi Arabia that with these mentalities ruling Israel, there could never be peace. There could never be cooperation. And that's why the Saudi rhetoric and language shifted, because Saudi Arabia, being the heart of the Islamic world, being the leader of the Arab world, being the most respected Arab countries worldwide, could never just watch that and let it pass by without taking a position. So the shift in the Saudi attempts to try to find a solution with Israel was not just again an emotional or no, it was a result of deep conviction that the extremists who are ruling Israel now are not worthy of any cooperation, and they could never be trusted, and they will never be able to coexist with the Palestinians. So this has to be really understood why the shift took place. But on your very good question regarding the Saudi public, Saudi Arabia, like the Saudi society, like all the Arab societies, have always been on the right of justice in Palestine, have always been in supporting the Palestinian ambitions and attempts to seek their independence, to drive or to kick occupation out of their lands, and this took place, amongst the elderly, the young, the children, men, women, and you will never find one Saudi. I think this is true in most of all Arab worlds. Now we can have one exception in, unfortunately, in the Emirates, but you will never find one Saudi who would accept the atrocities that have been happening not only during the last two years, but during the last 76 years in Palestine, nor is ready to have any relationship with this aggressor at any level. So this was completely understood and well known to the leadership in Saudi Arabia, and the leadership would never get into something that is against the the desires and the ambitions of the society.
A Saudi journalist close to the UAE posted recently that the only reason this is happening is because the Saudi economy is not going well. And this is a way of distracting the public, a populist way of distracting public attention. Attack Israel, and they'll forget that Neom is not being built properly or fully. He also said there were double standards because meetings still keep happening. Not only in Riyadh, there's an economic forum involving the Israelis, but the Saudi ambassador to the US, Rina Al Saud, met Herzog, the Israeli president, in Davos, and the Crown Prince's brother, Khalid bin Salman, the defense minister, met Zionist speakers when he was in DC. And Israel always says, yes, they always say this, but in private they tell us something else. What do you think?
This is a very nice joke as far as I'm concerned. The Saudi economy is in very good shape. And it cannot but be in a good shape. Saudi Arabia has one of the largest oil reservoirs in the world. Saudi Arabia has many undiscovered reservoirs, not only of oil but of other materials, precious materials. Saudi Arabia has built a very strong infrastructure in Saudi Arabia, even an industrial infrastructure. Saudi Arabia has become a very successful touristic destination. Saudi Arabia has most importantly, has the two holy mosques, and Muslims will never stop from coming to do their religious duties in Saudi Arabia. So talking about a weak or deteriorating Saudi economy is, in my point of view, is total nonsense. The other incidents that you mentioned, these were diplomatic requirements in light of this unjustified attack on Saudi Arabia as an anti-Semitic country. It was, it was an obligation to explain the true Saudi position, not only regarding anti-Semitism, but also regarding peace in the Middle East and what the requirements of achieving peace are. And I know of no Saudi politician who have not repeated the same message all the time. Peace requires justice in Palestine, total cessation of aggression by the Israelis, an independent, a sovereign state for Palestinians, and a just solution for the Palestinian refugees. No Saudi in any official capacity said anything but this. And I don't think Saudi Arabia will move 1 inch from this principled and well-justified position.
I mean, Israel hasn't just crushed Gaza and flattened it completely and put over 2 million people into tents. It has also conducted a massive pogrom in the West Bank. And just on Sunday, very recently, Israel has announced the de facto annexation of the West Bank, including increasing control of the Ibrahimi Mosque in Hebron, the opening of the Palestinian land registry, so it will make it easier for settlers to identify the Palestinian owners of land so that they can seize it, and increase the speed of settlements in the West Bank. In practical terms, what can Saudi Arabia do to stop this?
Saudi Arabia can do a lot. Saudi Arabia is a heavyweight in the region. But let me first address the fact that what Israel is doing is not just a reaction to what happened in October 7th or to what may have happened in southern Lebanon or in the West Bank. As I mentioned, the Udeid Union or Union strategy that he published in 1982 is a summary of the great Israeli ambition of their promised land that goes from the Euphrates to the Nile and from North Syria to the middle of the Arabian Peninsula. They are really implementing their strategy and their crazy dreams, and every action by Israel should be looked at in this context. I think it's time that not only the Arab world realize this fact and start real action to defend the Arab world from it, but I think the whole world. I personally believe Israel is not only a danger to the Palestinians. It's not a threat to Saudi Arabia or Egypt or Syria. Or Israel is a threat to the whole world. And in the top of the whole world, it's a threat to Jews and to Judaism. What Israel has been doing and is doing is really destroying Judaism. It is destroying the image of Jews everywhere. And we have seen how the world has changed in their emotions and feelings towards the Israelis and unfortunately, accordingly to the Jewish people. So it's this enormous threat has to be realized in its reality, and never listen to the rhetoric of Benjamin Netanyahu or the other Israeli officials. Israel, briefly, is a threat to humanity, it's a threat to Judaism, it's a threat to Jews, and definitely it is a threat to the region and to the Arab world. In light of this, definitely Saudi Arabia will not stand still, nor any other Arab country will stand still. It's a moral, it's a human, and it's an existential responsibility to take action against this threat and to start uniting, organizing, to put an end to it. Otherwise, God knows what will happen.
In reality, the Arab League has faded in importance and folded itself into the Trump initiative. And the two are based on completely different principles. The Arab Peace Initiative that then Crown Prince Abdullah bravely promoted was founded on the principle of land for peace. The Trump and Kushner formula is founded on the principle of surrender for survival. The Abraham Accords that they're still trying to push suppresses Palestinian statehood. And in return for a cessation of Israel's assassination attempts. But even that isn't guaranteed, because we know what's happening in southern Lebanon, and we know what's happening in Gaza, where the ceasefire isn't being adhered to, and where there are more than 1,000 infringements and over 500 Palestinians have been killed, while Trump is saying, oh yes, the ceasefire still exists. So there are fundamental problems here in trying to put the whole track back onto a formula based on mutual respect and land for peace. What can Saudi Arabia do about it?
Well, first of all, we have to remember always that Israel could have never done what it has done during the last 76 years without the support mainly from Britain, America, France and Germany, and to a certain extent the West in general. The genocide in Gaza, and which is still going on, by the way, it hasn't stopped, and it has extended to the West Bank as well. The genocide couldn't have happened without the American, the British, the German military support and the diplomatic support. America used the veto tens of times since 1948 until now.
At the UN Security Council, yes.
And yes. So this has always to be remembered. It's really ironic that those whose hands are stained with blood, the blood of Palestinians in Gaza, are the ones who are invited now to govern Gaza and to find a solution for the Palestinians. It's really crazy. This will not work, David. Believe me, it will never work. The people of Gaza have proven that they will not move from their land, that they will not accept another occupation instead of a previous occupation, that they will never let the murderers get away with their murders. They will be there all the time. And this is what the world has to know. The Palestinians will be in Palestine, whether Benjamin Netanyahu liked it or not, whether his gang liked it or not, whether America liked it or not, whether any other country liked it or not. The Palestinians will always be there, and they will always fight for their rights, and they will gain their independence one day. We hope it will not be a long time before they do that, but history has told us that no nation under colonization or occupation surrendered. There was always resistance. There was always fighting for freedom, fighting for independence, and this is what is going to happen. Putting this aside, Saudi Arabia has to deal with the reality as it is, and with this mad pedophile in the White House. The politics of reality have to be done and governed very carefully, so that a bigger problem will not be initiated. I think, again, I don't speak for the Saudi government, I speak for my own opinions, but I believe Saudi Arabia will never accept another colonization of Gaza by Tony Blair or by whoever it is, and will not forget the blood of the Palestinians that was shed in Gaza.
So, but what is Saudi Arabia doing on the board of peace, or Turkey, or Egypt? What is their strategy, do you think? As
I told you, I personally believe it's a diplomatic step to manage a very bad situation and to try to minimize the damage. That's what I believe.
The Saudi state has always had good relations with all of the Palestinian factions, but relations with Hamas have been cut for some time. Whatever you think of Hamas, it's still a major political player, and a real peace agreement is impossible without its consent, not only Hamas, but the other resistance factions. Will the freeze on the relations with Hamas continue, or do you think Riyadh will recalibrate its relations with that group?
Well, Saudi Arabia has always said and repeated many times that it will not take the position of the Palestinians in determining their fate. It has always said the Palestinians are the only people who can define what they want and do what they want. Saudi Arabia's position is to support justice, to try its best to stop the suffering of the Palestinian people, and to use all its assets in reaching a just and a fair solution to the problem in Palestine. But we have to remember, David, that Hamas did not come from a planet, another planet. Hamas are Palestinians. They are an intrinsic and a major part of the Palestinian population. They won the first and the only free elections in Palestine. They represent a big portion of the Palestinian people. Nobody can push them aside. Nobody can eliminate this fact. This is a reality that everybody has to deal with. And by the way, Hamas and the other factions, they are not different from the Americans who fought for their freedom and independence. They're no different from the Europeans who fought Nazism and fascism. They're not different from South Africa, from Vietnam, Algeria, you name it. This is their human right. This is their legal right. This is their ethical right, moral right, and it is supported by all the international law and all international treaties, from the Geneva Conventions to the Charter of the United Nations to the resolutions in many stages of the history of the UN. Occupied people have all the legitimate right to fight the occupiers, even with military force. So nobody can deny this and deprive the Palestinians from this intrinsic and legitimate right. Unfortunately, the Zionist media, and unfortunately the slaves of Zionism and of the Zionist media in the West, try to distort this reality. As a lawyer who studied international law carefully, who is heading an international organization for justice, Palestinians, as long as they are under occupation, as long as their rights are not, legitimate rights are not fulfilled, as long as Israel is bombarding them, assassinating their leaders, they have all the right to resist this, even by military means.
The Palestinian resistance movements are labeled generally as terrorists by the West, but as an international lawyer, how do you view armed resistance?
This is really one of the biggest distortions that accompanied the Palestinian dilemma. International law is very clear. The UN Charter is very clear. The Geneva Conventions, the 3 conventions, are absolutely clear on the fact that any occupied or colonized nation or people have all the right to resist occupation and colonization, including by military means. And all the revolutions in modern history, in the face of colonization, used military means. I can't think of one single experience where military means were not used. And unfortunately, many nations sacrificed huge numbers of their sons and daughters in order to gain their liberation. Palestine is not different from any other. The Palestinian people are not different from the other people of the world. And Palestine is not different from America, Vietnam, Algeria, South Africa. So to label the Palestinian resistance and the resistance fighters as terrorists is morally unaccepted, legally incorrect, and it should be totally rejected. You know, I can think of, for example, the American wars of liberation. How did they do it?
Against the English.
Yeah, against the British. They even sank civilian ships that were transporting goods to Boston and to the other ports in the east of America. The same thing, you know, applies. I mean, how did the Allies liberate Europe from fascism, from Nazism? Was that through peaceful negotiations? It was millions paid their blood to achieve this. The same thing in South Africa, in Algeria, in Vietnam, wherever you think. So it's really naive and sarcastic to label legitimate resistance as terrorism, or to call freedom fighters terrorists. This really tells you how far the world has abandoned its principles and values.
One of the huge differences that the genocide in Gaza has made is the effect it's had on regional alliances. In addition to the defense alliance between Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, there's now talk about an expanding alliance, which would include Turkey, Egypt, and possibly Algeria as well. How real is a prospect of the formation of a regional alliance that could limit Israel's ambitions and protect the region through an equivalent of Article 5 of NATO, i.e. that Arab nations would come to each other's defense when under attack?
I think, you know, this was a product of absolute necessity before anything else. I think Saudi Arabia and the other major powers in the region, Arab and Islamic powers in the region, have realized how dangerous it is to just stay on the sideline and watch Israel do what it has been doing. And they looked at the strategic and long-term effect of this attitude, and not only the attitude of Israel, but the attitude of the United States in particular, and many other European countries, if we exclude Spain and Ireland and maybe Norway. They have seen how far the West can go in supporting this hegemony and this aggression. And I think they realized that something has to be done. And by the way, if Israel could commit this enormous genocide in Gaza, what would prevent it from repeating it in any other part of the Arab world? Nothing. So they realized that something has to be done in the face of this. And I think it started cleverly and astutely by the Saudi-Pakistani alliance. I think there are efforts underway to expand this. I think it will include Turkey, Egypt, maybe others, we will see. But it is, as I said, it is a result of absolute necessity. Had there not been this existential threat by Israel, there was no need for this.
It's been over a year since Bashar al-Assad has been overthrown, and relations between the Crown Prince Mohammed and Ahmed Altuwaijri, the president of Syria, are warm. and MBS arranged for Shura to shake hands with Donald Trump in Riyadh, and that was a gesture that paved the way for Shura's visit to Washington. What role will Saudi Arabia play in supporting and sustaining a united Syria under the control of Damascus?
Well, to start with, what happened in Syria, together, I mean, in the same time as it was a great victory for the Syrian people, it was also a great victory for the Arab world, and definitely for Saudi Arabia as well. What was taking place in Syria under Assad's regime was another destruction of Arab unity, and it was an expansion of the Iranian arm in what is called the crescent, the Shia crescent. And that was a threat, an existential threat to all the countries, in the region. So, when we put this together with the fact that Saudi Arabia, from the beginning, tried to advise Assad to be wise and to handle the internal revolution with wisdom, when that failed, it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, supporters of the Syrian revolution. And when this prolonged, again, Saudi Arabia changed slightly its position to save the Syrian people, to find part of a solution instead of a complete solution. But when the victory came, definitely Saudi Arabia was very happy to see that. And that's why it threw all its weight behind President al-Shura and the Syrian people. And Saudi Arabia now is working day and night to guarantee the stability of the Syrian government, to make sure that the agony of the Syrian people is dealt with quickly and efficiently, and doing also its best to protect Syria from the Israeli continuous aggression and attempts to destabilize the Shura government.
What about the Druze in south of Syria?
The Druze have always lived in Syria, have always lived in Lebanon. They coexisted with the other components of the Syrians and the Lebanese. Unfortunately, one of the tactics Israel has been using all along recent history in its attempt to achieve its greater Israel has been to play on the chord of minorities. They have convinced some of the Druze to be their agents as well, like they did with some of the Kurds, like they were attempting to do with some of the Berbers in North Africa. But I think they have failed. I think the history is against them, because the Kurds, the Druze, the other minorities have always lived with the populations in these countries peacefully, and they coexisted in a very nice way. And they have failed because in all these minorities there are honorable people, leaders who rejected this intervention by Israel, rejected the notion of separation, and put their hands with the legitimate authorities in all of these areas.
What do you think about what's going on in Lebanon, where both the US and I think Israel as well is demanding the demilitarization of Hezbollah? If Hezbollah demilitarized, what would stop Israel turning southern Lebanon into the playground of settlers and their soldiers?
You know, historically, I'm personally a staunch opponent of Hezbollah. Like many, Sunnis in the world, we reject what they did in some of what they did in Lebanon. We also reject, more importantly, what they did in Syria and Yemen. They were unfortunately a destructive tool in the hand of the Iranian regime. But this does not prevent me from saying that the Lebanese people are the only entity that can decide what to do with Hezbollah arms. I believe it should be disarmed, but not by Israel, definitely, and not by the US. It should be achieved internally in Lebanon, because nobody would accept two powers in one country, military powers, I mean. The objective, or the announced objective, of the creation of Hezbollah and the other groups was to to liberate Lebanon from Israeli occupation. I think this can be achieved, I hope. And once it's achieved, there will be no legitimacy for any other entity to be militarized inside a sovereign country. I should also mention Hezbollah lost a lot of its credibility due to what they did in Syria and what they did in Yemen.
Is the Saudi rapprochement with Turkey real? And I noted that President Erdogan was greeted very, very warmly in Riyadh recently. And does this reflect a real change of Saudi thinking? Because for a long time, particularly during the Arab Spring, but also during an attempted coup in Turkey, the Saudi media and the Emirati media were on the point of welcoming the possible overthrow of Erdogan. There have been other issues as well, like the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Has a corner being turned in the relationship between Turkey and Saudi Arabia?
I think, at the present time, the Saudi-Turkish relationships have reached a peak. I don't think they have ever been as strong and as well entrenched as they are now. As far as I know, Saudi Arabia and Turkey had always good relationships. I mean, if we forget the old history during the Ottoman, but I mean, since definitely after Ataturk, the relationship improved a lot. From the time of King Faisal, the relationships were developed to a great extent, like what happens in any diplomatic and international relationships. There are ups and downs. Certainly there were some downs, but I think these have been forgotten now. And I think both countries have realized that it is in their own interest, and it is in the interest of the region, it's in the interest of the Arab Islamic world, and also in the interest of the international community, that they cooperate, that they coordinate their positions and their steps. And I'm very optimistic about this. I think, as I said before, this will expand and will include other big countries, including Indonesia, Malaysia, I think even Nigeria, and all the big Islamic and Arab countries. And this is the only way to protect the region, because otherwise the flood of the Zionist aggression will destroy the whole region.
Can we speak about Iran? There's a critical situation at the moment. There's a huge armada being gathered outside in the sea to attack Iran. There are also peace talks going on at the moment. Just before the peace, there was a flurry of concern that the peace talks in Muscat in Oman last week were going to be called off. They originally slated for Istanbul, and then the Americans, firstly the Supreme Leader didn't want them in Istanbul, and then the Americans said we only want them in Istanbul. So there was a possibility that the Americans could walk away from these peace talks. And I think no less than 9 countries in the Gulf, including certainly Saudi Arabia, phoned up Trump to say, give peace a chance, don't attack Iran, because Iran is not like Venezuela. It will not be a quick operation, and you will not be able to control the consequences of Iran's retaliation. Iran is not Venezuela. What is your view about how dangerous an attack by America and Netanyahu, the second in a year, would be on the Gulf as a whole? What would happen if America and Israel attacked Iran?
It's very true that there were interventions to stop the attack. And I personally believe Saudi Arabia played the most important role in this aspect for many reasons. Saudi Arabia realizes that resolving disputes through negotiations and peaceful means is much, much more productive than through military means. I think this is a principle most of reasonable countries in the world believe in. So out of principle, Saudi Arabia acted that way. But also, Saudi Arabia saw a huge threat to the whole region. If America or Israel went away with their plans to attack Iran, because Saudi Arabia realizes, as you said, Iran is not Venezuela. Iran has many cards to use in such a situation, and they are very destructive cards. Iran could attack American bases in the region, could go even further than that when it is a matter of existential threat, to attack all entities in the region, to destroy the Gulf and to blockade the Hormuz Strait, and maybe go even further, and attack Israel with more devastating ballistic missiles. And God knows what the Shia minorities in the region would do. So it was a huge gamble, totally unrealistic, totally reckless, and I think that's why Saudi Arabia threw all its weight to prevent it as much as possible. I hope these efforts will continue to produce, despite the fact that I know the maniacs in Israel will never be satisfied without further complicating the situation, not only in Iran, but in the whole region.
I mean, there is a difference between Trump's policy and Netanyahu's policy. Trump's policy wants a quick strike, or he wanted a quick strike, decapitation, and then the submission of Iran, in which Iran would start selling oil to America, as it did under the Shah. Under the Shah, you had the Shah's rule Iranian oil went to the so-called Seven Sisters, which were all the major oil companies, the American BP, as it wasn't known as BP, but it became known as BP, Total, all of them were involved. And it took a long while for Iran to try and claw back some of the profit from Iranian oil to this from this consortium. Now what's being proposed is another version of the Seven Sisters, only it is entirely with Trump. Do you think the Islamic Republic that has resisted gas attacks for 8 years from Saddam Hussein would suddenly now turn around, as Venezuela is apparently doing, and sell or give Iranian oil for the exclusive use of America? Do you think that is remotely feasible, or is Trump dreaming?
I don't think the American policymakers nor the American intelligence believe really that they can do what they did in Venezuela, do it in Iran. Definitely Iran is much more sophisticated, complicated, and much more strong than Venezuela. Even if they have agents inside Iran. It will be a bloody battle. It will be a long battle. We have to remember that the Revolutionary Guard in Iran are more than, 700, 800,000 well-armed and well-trained people. Iran is geographically is a huge country. I don't think neither the Americans nor the Israelis will send troops on land. It will be suicidal. I honestly don't think this scenario that President Trump has in mind or imagines will ever work. And I think they know that. I don't think they are naive to believe otherwise. Israel's plan is different. Israel doesn't care if the region is destroyed. Actually, it facilitates its ambitions, and it makes it easier for creating the greater Israel. That's what they want. And that's why I think the Arab world, the Islamic world, and I think the international community should prevent this. But on the other hand, Iran has to act wisely and has to be more realistic in solving the problem. The very ironic aspect of this is, we are demanding that Iran should stop all its nuclear program, even for peaceful means. While in the same time, Israel has, at least they announced, 200 nuclear bombs and no inspection. Nobody even talks about it. How can this be accepted? This weakens the international position, weakens the American position, and even weakens our position as neighboring countries. When we see, the demands here, not accepting any form of nuclear activity and allowing Israel to get away with this for many, many years now, for decades. So I think of course, I go back again and say, despite this, Iran should be more realistic and should find a solution for the sake of the Iranian people first, and for the sake of the region in the second place, and not to give neither the Israelis nor the Americans any justification for an insane step. But I think the world, including the Arab Islamic world, and they should find a solution for the nuclear threat. The nuclear threat is not only from Iran or from Israel. The nuclear threat is from any power that has it. And if one country has to be stripped of its nuclear power, it should be the United States, because it's the only country in the history of mankind that used the nuclear power. So a real effort should be paid for an international effort to strip off all nuclear, all mass destruction weapons from the whole world. The whole world cannot live with this nightmare continuing over the heads of humanity. This cannot continue like that. And if the leaders of the world are truly responsible and they care about the future of humanity, this should be their most priority at this stage. Because without it, who knows? North Korea, Russia, Israel, who knows? And the first atomic bomb that goes off will mean that the whole world will pay the price.
A lot has been said about the loss of the West's moral authority over the Middle East. It's obviously no longer, with Trump, a rules-based world. And with the attack on the International Criminal Court that issued arrest warrants for Netanyahu and the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, it's also a Western attack, not just on the rule of law, but the rule of international law as well, and on the highest criminal court in the world. How does Saudi Arabia view the West now, and is it prepared to accept lectures on morality and law from an America that constantly breaks both?
Saudi Arabia, again, I'm not a spokesperson. Saudi Arabia, historically, without any exception, have always believed in international law, in respect of the sovereignty of sovereign countries, in peaceful resolution of conflict, in cooperation instead of confrontation. These have been well-principled positions by all generations, political generations in Saudi Arabia. Unfortunately, President Trump has taken catastrophic steps to destroy all these things. What he did in Venezuela is, the least that can be said about it is a complete humiliation of international law. He's blind, and the previous administration's blind support for the Israeli aggressions and genocide is in total contradiction with international law. And his attack on the ICC or the ICJ court, the International Criminal is disgraceful. These were the results of real international needs and real human needs. Just to come and with a signature, you try to eliminate them. And even his attempt now to make the Peace Council in Gaza to be a substitute for the UN. This is total madness. And unfortunately, as I said before, these are realities that we have to deal with logically and calmly and wisely, so that it does not become even worse. I hope President Trump will never have a chance to continue, in a second term. I hope the American people will realize how dangerous he is to America first and then to the rest of the world. And I seize this moment to say something I have always believed in, and I have always said it also. I said it in many occasions. I am personally indebted to America. I spent many years with my family in America. I studied, I had my MA and PhD from American institutions. I made a lot of friends in America. I have known many scholars, many academicians, many politicians in America, and I have associated with a lot of them very closely. The American people are a great nation. America is a great country. And the American people are generally peaceful. And they are one of the easiest nations to deal with. I never felt a stranger in America. So it's really heartbreaking to see America deteriorate to the status that it is in now. Everybody is ridiculing America, is ridiculing the American administration. The White House has become a center of sarcasm and comedy. And I sincerely hope this will change. And I'm optimistic it will change. I think in the midterm elections and finally in the next elections, the young Americans especially are fed up. Their voice will be loud and it will be heard. And I think all these right-wing warmongers who have seized the power in the last previous year and will come to an end. And that will be good for America. It will be good also for mankind and the world in general.
But there is also this thing, I'm thinking of the splits within the right in America. There's a split between MAGA, Make America Great Again, and MIGA, Make Israel Great Again. And there are quite a few very important Christian right-wing commentators like Tucker Carlson who have really made inroads into the automatic support that Israel has in the Republican Party. How important do you think those cracks are that are appearing? And does this mean that there will be a new generation of American, which is both of left and of right, who will not automatically cast a huge blanket of impunity over everything that Israel does and treat it more like the normal, another normal state, and judge it by what it does or doesn't do for American interests in the Middle East?
There is change. I think any observing eye cannot miss it. At all levels, there is change. The most important change is what you referred to, the split in the right-wing, population in America. And I take this opportunity to express my respect to Tucker Carlson for the great job he is doing. He's really making great achievements in enlightening the American society and the world in general about many, many important issues. So he really deserves to be condoned and thanked for that. As I told you, I have many friendships in America. I have seen this amongst those friends. In the past, very few could speak freely and could express their opinions loudly about Israel and what Israel was doing. This has changed. They are more courageous now. They are more enthusiastic to express their opinions and feelings. And they all, of course, reject what has happened and demand that something should be done about it. They also are not happy with what Trump has been doing, and the right wing in general have been doing in America. And they are, again, raising their voices. This I did not see for many, many years. So there is change. There is a big change. And I think it will continue. And if you remember, there's a video for Benjamin Netanyahu addressing the social media owners and chiefs, and he was saying our battle should shift to TikTok, to X, to he said that because they are realizing this shift, huge shift. And the nice part about this is it is too late to change it. It is extremely too late to change it. The young people in the West, especially in America, have changed their mind, and they will continue in this new direction they are in, and their voices will be heard. And I promise you, in the midterm and in the election in 3 years, we will see the results of all of this very clearly.
Final question. There is really two separate things going on. One is Gaza itself, which was a military defeat. Palestinians are worse off than they've ever been, not only in Gaza, but in 48 and also in the West Bank. But the other thing is the Gaza effect. And the Gaza effect is to have propelled the Palestinian struggle to the very top of the world's human rights agenda. And you can see this in whichever country in the West you live. That has become a massive human rights issue in Britain, in Europe, in America, and the capitals of the world are regularly filled with massive demonstrations, the like of which we haven't seen since the Iraq War, even bigger demonstrations. Are you optimistic that in the long run there will be such a thing as a Palestinian state?
Extremely optimistic, for many good reasons. First of all, what has happened, in my opinion, has been a divine intervention. Nobody could expect that these huge crowds, hundreds of thousands, would go out in the streets of London, Paris, Berlin, New York, Los Angeles, you name it, and voice their rejection of genocide, voice the rejection of starving Gaza, voice their rejection for the crimes against humanity and war crimes that Israel was conducting. The many politicians who have changed their language and started to criticize the Israeli lobby, the AIPAC, nobody could have imagined this a few years ago. The stands of Ireland, Spain, Norway, Sweden, the shift in position by most of the European countries regarding the Palestinian state, all these...
The recognition of Palestine.
Yes, the recognition of the Palestinian state. All these could never have been imagined before. I think they were the shockwaves, or some of the shockwaves created by what happened in Gaza. And I think it will continue. It will continue, and it will be even greater than this. I think Israel has been stripped naked. It has been exposed. And its real reality has been shown to the world. For many years, the Zionist machine has, as Edward Said said in his book, unveiled reality, unveiled the truth, or as he called it, unveiling coverage, or whatever he said in his book. Israel is seen as it is now, and humanity is disliking everything about this scene that they are seeing. And that's why I am very optimistic this will continue, and the extremists in Israel will pay a heavy price. I hope it will not be a bloody price, but I hope that wisdom will prevail and a just and a fair resolution in Palestine takes place, with the principles that Saudi initiatives emphasized, creation of a Palestinian state, recognition of Palestinian rights, a fair solution for the refugees.
Dr. Ahmed, thank you very much indeed.
You're most welcome. It has been a pleasure to talk to you, David.